Finally, we find out the new face of Match of the Day is not going to be necessarily one particular person to fill in for Gary Lineker. It's going to be a series of 3 people, and one of whom is Kelly Cates, in line to be one of 3 people replacing Gary Lineker, including Chapman and Gabby Logan. Is that going to make people watch Match of the Day less? I don't think so.
Well, you know, I'm not a football person. I'm tempted to ask my old friend Joey Barton what he thinks about this particular
He's apparently, I was watching something of his on Twitter at the weekend. He's apparently going to take up boxing. Wants to now fight a few people.
Didn't tell me that.
No.
Yeah, I don't know who this Kelly Cates is. I mean, I have to say, not knowing any of these people, when I saw the picture, I thought, here we go, sticking another woman in. But apparently she's done a very good job at Sky Sports.
Sky, yes.
And so she seems to know her stuff. But you can't help but look that there's Mark Chapman, Gabby Logan and Kelly Cates. And it just seems like an odd... It's
another... It would appear to be, as good as they all are, another sort of opportunity for the BBC to make something good happen, and they've once again blundered it and made something bad happen, right?
Well...
they can't seem to get anything right. Why don't they just appoint one person to be the new Gary Lineker? It's almost as though they don't want to do that in case Gary Lineker doesn't like it.
Well, at least we can celebrate the departure of Gary Lineker from our lives.
I mean, that would be nice, yeah. Although I'm sure that he's already, you know, polishing his boots for the Saudi Arabian World Cup, because you know how he likes to go and, you know, complain about human rights while receiving a large cheque for appearing in that very country, as he did with Qatar.
But, you know, I'm of the age, you know, David Coleman, Jimmy Hill, these were the characters.
Kenneth Wolstenholme.
Yeah, and, you know, Des Lynam as well. Yeah. And it just seems that we don't have gentlemen of that calibre, you know, people who just weren't political, who just gave you what you wanted, and they were warm.
And were quite funny.
They were funny.
Into the bargain.
And everyone could enjoy them, rather than being so divisive as we see all the time now.
Now, over the weekend, I don't know if you tried to travel by train anywhere, but the South West Trains network was completely and utterly scuppered because they couldn't find any drivers. This despite the fact that, of course, you know, Louise Haigh gave them a big pay rise, mammoth pay rise, 15% just a few months ago. Similarly, Northern trains weren't running either. We now hear this morning that ministers have handed train driver union brands a pay hike of up to 75%. This is on top of the last pay rise, just to do a bit of overtime, because apparently they have 3 days off a week because they work a 4-day week. They always get very worked up. I was on Twitter last night arguing with a few train drivers. They always get very worked up and say, you couldn't do what I do, I could do what you do. And people go, well, you drive a train in a straight line. You don't have to turn right or left. You occasionally might have to go backwards a little bit. You just have to make sure you stop at this. No, it's much more complicated than that. But here's the deal. Green-lighted by Heidi Alexander. £580 to work an overtime shift between Monday and Friday, and £600 at the weekends for one shift. And they only work 4 hours at a time.
And this is happening whilst they're taking away the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. This is what you have to remember. You know, this 22 billion black hole,
isn't it?
Is, you know, the pay rises to the public sector have gone through the roof. And our farmers and our pensioners are paying the price for all of that. You know, I have a friend who became a train driver as a second career. Because he knew the pay was so good. He just said it, you know.
It really is.
I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said the pay rise is an absolute disgrace. He said there was no justification for it. I said, oh, did you refuse it? Oh, no, I didn't refuse it.
No, of course, why would you?
Why would you?
But the point is that, you know, they are paid a ludicrous amount of money for what they do. And I mean, they can, you know, they can cry till the cows come home that they do a very, very difficult job, and it's very stressful because somebody might jump out in front of it and kill themselves. Well, sure, I'm sure that's true. But nevertheless, it's not really, surely to heaven, it's the most difficult public sector job you can have.
Well, it's amazing, you know, we've got these new Piccadilly line tube trains coming out in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
State of the art. Yeah. Why are they not driverless?
Yes.
You know, the unions are such a stranglehold.
Well,
you know, the Victoria Line trains were built to be driverless from the 60s. You've got the DLR. There's no reason that we are buying new trains that require drivers at all.
And of course, the unions will say, oh yeah, the DLR might be driverless, but there's always somebody from you know, the union sitting there watching it. Well, that tells you how powerful the union are, as opposed to whether it's necessary. You know, the union have managed to get somebody to tell them, yeah, we have to still pay a driver, even though he's not driving the train, because it drives itself. And we're going to convince everybody that if he wasn't there, it would be incredibly dangerous. Well, it's not, is it?
Walk off a train, walk on a train, doors open.
It's just not. Talking of transportation, though, a picture of Ian Hislop in the Daily Mail with a big sort of bandage on the back of his head. Apparently he was hit by an e-bike while crossing a road in London last week, leaving him needing medical treatment.
I hope that e-bike wasn't badly damaged.
I hope not. Yeah, that would be wrong, wouldn't it? Do you remember last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, he's a bit accident prone. He was in a taxi, and the back window suddenly shattered, and the story went out that somebody had tried to shoot him, which of course turned out to be complete rubbish.
Paul Merchant,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah, no, it just so happened that the taxi had gone over a particularly bad pothole, and the back window shattered. And nobody was trying to shoot him at all. He had to sort of issue a retraction, as I say, because at first he went, somebody's been trying to shoot me. Turns out, no, it's actually not the case. But now that somebody's run over him in an e-bike, maybe there is some kind of vendetta. Maybe there's somebody out there who's trying to take over the show. Who can say? I don't know. Back to the NHS. It turns out NHS visitors are now being told to wear masks when they go back into hospital, which we haven't seen for a while. And physician associates, and these are people who are now working instead of doctors in various scenarios, apparently are not allowed to work alone. So what's the point of them?
Well, I'd never heard of this physician associate before in my life, and I was amazed that they were actually doing doctor's work despite not having a medical degree. Can you imagine that? How confident would you be? And the General Medical Council formally began to regulate the profession on Friday.
Yes.
So what on earth were you doing?
I know.
Allowing unregulated people to basically, you know, do the work of doctors.
Yeah.
And it comes after reports of patients coming to harm or dying after seeing a PA.
Yes. It is a bit of a worry, isn't it?
It's
a bit like
very worrying.
When I was in America, they used to have a show called Emergency Ward 10, which was just another one. It's like Casualty, right? And the guy from it used to come on TV, and he would go, "I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV," and then he would endorse some kind of product or other, which was supposed to be good for you. And you go, "Oh, great, okay then." And these people are similar to this, I think. You know, I'm not a doctor, but I know a couple of doctors quite well, and they've hired me to help you out because there's a bit of a long waiting list. So I'll tell you what I think you should do, and it's up to you whether or not you take my advice.
Yeah, and the plan is to have 10,000 of these guys.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Bring it on. Let's talk about, Kelly, here's one from Martin, because I want to mention, actually, Gareth Southgate. Kelly Cates is Kenny Dalglish's daughter, and she is very good. Yes, she is very good, Martin, but not because she's Kenny Dalglish's daughter. You shouldn't get a job in television talking about football just because your dad played football. You know, it's a bit like me going, well, my dad was an artist, so I should get the next, South Bank show on the grounds that he knew a lot about art.
Well, as a historian, the classic one for me is Dan Snow, who now poses as a historian despite having no historical qualifications, who happens to be the marriage to the Duke of Westminster's cousin.
Right.
And
he's the son of...
Sister is the son of Peter Snow, the famous Peter Snow.
The man with the swingometer.
His mother is the Canadian version of Peter Snow, and he's the great-grandson of David Lloyd George.
Right.
The ultimate Nepo baby.
Yes, absolutely right. Well, speaking of which, I saw a story over the weekend that not only is Sadiq Khan getting a knighthood, but they're going to give one to Gareth Southgate. So I put out a tweet going, you know, brilliant, now you get a knighthood for coming second. And people go, he's the most successful English football team manager in the history of football. And I'm like, yeah, but he didn't win anything. He literally did not win anything. He came second in a couple of finals, and now we're going to knight him for that very reason.
Well, there's nothing more British than coming second, not winning. So that's fine. Probably why he merits.
But let's not, welcome him into this sort of the knighted area, for heaven's sake. Not having heard much recently, can anyone tell the public when charges might be brought against the Manchester airport assailant? Says Pete in what can only be described as a text that we get every single day. I can't tell you, the CPS can't tell you, the Manchester Police can't tell you, and Andy Burnham can't tell you either, because apparently nobody knows. It is remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. And one from Mark in Selby. Mike, the Saracen's Head that you mentioned earlier is in Old Amersham, not Chesham. Can the Mail not get anything right? Well, I mean, let's talk about nitpicking. I mean, I've seen references to Chesham and Amersham as one place. I know that they're not one place, but if you go to Amersham and Chesham, they're not very far away. My apologies, Mark.
I've never seen a Saracen's Head pub anywhere, actually. So
have you not?
No, I'm surprised that it's...
Well, I used to go to one in Bath, actually, and I don't even know if it's still there. But yeah, fascinating. Anyway, listen, Rafe, good to talk to you. Good to see you.